The Persian Gulf has transformed into a global flashpoint of unprecedented proportions as Iran sends an unmistakable message to the international community, effectively holding the global economy hostage within an absolute risk zone that no superpower has yet dared to breach. At this hour, the geopolitical landscape is shifting toward a confrontation that could redefine modern warfare, as Tehran's actions have prompted Washington to return to the theater with the most overwhelming military force in human history. According to high-level defense sources and recent intelligence briefings, the critical 21-mile-wide Strait of Hormuz has been saturated with a dense, sophisticated network of sea mines lurking just beneath the surface, creating a lethal barrier for international shipping. This maritime blockade is further bolstered by the fortification of Harg Island, where the entire coastline has reportedly been rigged with deadly explosive traps and underwater obstacles. On the surface, the threat remains equally dire, as swarms of suicide boats laden with high-grade explosives patrol the waters, ready to detonate at a moment's notice against any vessel attempting to challenge Iranian sovereignty in the region. The intent behind this multi-layered psychological and physical barrier is clear: to create a no-less underwater labyrinth that would deter even the most advanced navies. However, Washington has signaled that it will not be intimidated by these defensive measures, and instead of a limited air campaign followed by a tactical withdrawal, the United States has activated a comprehensive and large-scale attack scenario. The image emerging on the horizon is one of immense gravity, characterized by the convergence of massive warships, elite paratrooper units, and a devastating array of aerial assets including F-35 stealth fighters, A-10 Thunderbolt II attack jets, and AH-64 Apache attack helicopters. These hardware assets are being accompanied by tens of thousands of ground troops, who are quietly but steadily infiltrating the region to establish a foothold for what may be one of the largest ground operations in the Middle East to date. In a significant logistical movement, 12 A-10 Thunderbolt II aircraft are being redeployed from Bangor Air Base to RAF Lakenheath in the United Kingdom, supported by a fleet of aerial refueling tankers to facilitate their rapid transit to the front lines. This massive demonstration of power is described by Pentagon officials as merely the first gust of an approaching storm. According to a shocking report published by the Wall Street Journal on the evening of March 26th, the United States military is preparing to deploy an additional 10,000 troops to the Middle East under an emergency order. The focal point of these ground operations is the historic 82nd Airborne Division, which arrived in the theater last weekend. Joining them are hundreds of elite special operations personnel, including Army Rangers and Navy SEALs, who are currently en route to the region. Reports indicate that reinforcements for this division will continue to arrive throughout this week, bringing the immediate frontline personnel count to approximately 3,000. Yet, the truly alarming reality lies in the scale of the broader buildup. These 10,000 specialized troops are merely the vanguard of a much larger force. Currently, there is already a massive American military presence consisting of 50,000 soldiers, fully equipped from head to toe, stationed throughout various regional bases. When adding the naval and airborne units expected to reach 17,000, the total force projection approaches a staggering 67,000 personnel. Military analysts are paying close attention to the timing of this buildup, noting a significant nuance in the diplomatic timeline. As the world witnessed, President Trump recently suspended active strikes against Iran for a 10-day period, a move many interpreted as a signal for a potential ceasefire or the opening of a diplomatic corridor. However, it was during this exact window of perceived de-escalation that the Pentagon announced the decision to send tens of thousands of additional troops. This suggests that the 10-day period may not be a bridge to peace, but rather the final window for preparation for a massive military intervention. The message from the Pentagon remains resolute. If diplomacy fails, the military is prepared to intervene with total force. This preparation is far from theoretical. According to the Wall Street Journal, these arriving forces will integrate with U.S. Marines already advancing in the region. The amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli is currently on station, carrying the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, and it is not operating alone. The USS Boxer is also steaming toward the region with its own Marine Expeditionary Unit. Together with the paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne, they represent a combat-ready force with over 7,000 amphibious landing and airborne capabilities, all positioned just hours from the Iranian coast. This force is not merely a collection of numbers, but a highly integrated military machine. Each unit of the U.S. Marine Corps is deployed with its own organic air support, armored vehicles, and intelligence assets. The MV-22 Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft are capable of transporting hundreds of troops inland in minutes, while CH-53E Super Stallion heavy-lift helicopters can ferry heavy equipment from ship to shore. Simultaneously, LCAC hovercraft are prepared to land armored vehicles directly onto the beaches, marking one of the most comprehensive amphibious landing preparations in modern history. If this force is ordered to land, military analysts agree that the primary objective will be Kark Island. This strategic location is the lifeblood of the Iranian economy, serving as the primary export terminal for 90% of the country's crude oil. The United States has targeted this island before under Operation Epic Fury, where over 90 military objectives were neutralized using B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, F-35s, and Tomahawk cruise missiles. While previous strikes leveled radar stations, missile silos, and command centers, the oil infrastructure was intentionally left untouched. President Trump stated at the time that the U.S. showed restraint, but warned there is no guarantee such restraint will continue in the next phase of the conflict. Iran, for its part, has not remained idle. Recent reports from CNN indicate that intensive fortifications have been constructed on Kark Island over the last several weeks. Additional air defense systems have been deployed, and coastal defense missile batteries, including the Kish, Fars, and Hormuz II systems, have been relocated to the island. Most dangerously, Iran has heavily mined the waters surrounding the terminal. Tehran's asymmetric message is becoming clear, and analysts are now discussing a scorched earth strategy, where Iran might sabotage its own oil facilities to prevent them from falling into American hands. Such a scenario would be a nightmare for global energy markets. Beyond Kark Island, secondary geostrategic targets include Lavan Island, Siri Island, and Keshm Island, each a crucial component of Iran's logistical and military infrastructure in the Persian Gulf. Keshm Island, situated directly opposite the Strait of Hormuz, is particularly vital. Whoever controls Keshm controls the flow of global energy. Analysis from the Center for Strategic and International Studies suggests that the U.S. currently possesses the capability for simultaneous amphibious landings across these islands. In the initial hours of an operation, Special Operations Forces from Delta Force and the 75th Ranger Regiment would likely infiltrate the targets via helicopter, utilizing the cover of darkness and low-altitude flight paths to evade radar detection. Their mission would be to silently neutralize radar stations and missile batteries, opening the door for the Marines and the 82nd Airborne to secure the islands and their critical infrastructure. This operation would be supported by a massive aerial umbrella, with F-35B fighters providing continuous close air support and EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft jamming Iranian communication and radar systems. Military planners estimate the entire operation could be completed within 24 to 48 hours, provided there are no major complications. However, Tehran has prepared a death trap in the Strait of Hormuz, employing drone swarms, fast attack boats, and coastal missile batteries to keep every passing vessel in range. If a ground operation begins, Iran's first response will likely be the total closure of the strait, halting the daily flow of 20 million barrels of oil and triggering a catastrophic earthquake in the global energy markets. The broader U.S. military presence in the Middle East supports this massive potential operation, with Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar serving as the primary air operations center and Al Dhafra in the United Arab Emirates hosting F-35 fleets and drone operations. The U.S. Fifth Fleet remains headquartered in Bahrain, while logistics and ground support units are stationed in Jordan. Furthermore, reinforcements from the 5th Corps in Europe and destroyers from the 7th Fleet in the Pacific have been redirected to the theater. As of late March 2026, the total number of U.S. personnel in the region is nearing 70,000, the highest level in years. This machine is ready to move the moment the 10-day diplomatic window expires. While the first wave would target Harj and the surrounding islands, a second, more extensive wave could target Bandar Abbas, Iran's largest naval base and a critical point for controlling the strait. Such an operation would be vastly more complex due to the dense civilian population on the Iranian mainland. Similarly, the strategic city of Bushehr, home to nuclear facilities, remains a high-risk objective that could have global implications for nuclear security. The presence of 65,000 troops suggests that even these high-stakes options are on the table. Iran's strategy relies on asymmetric warfare to counter the undeniable conventional superiority of the United States. Tehran knows it cannot win a traditional war against American air and sea power, so it intends to overwhelm U.S. defenses with drone swarms and ballistic missile strikes against regional bases like Al Udeid and Al Dhafra. Furthermore, Iran may mobilize its network of proxy forces, including Hezbollah and the Houthis, to ignite multiple fronts across the Middle East, forcing the Pentagon to divide its attention and resources. The U.S. has anticipated this, deploying the THAAD missile defense system to Israel and positioning destroyers in the Red Sea to intercept Houthi attacks. If Harg Island is captured and Iranian oil revenues are severed, the regime would face a crippling economic crisis, but the global impact would be equally severe, with oil prices potentially soaring toward $200 per barrel. This energy crisis would hit major importers like China and India particularly hard. Despite Tehran seeking support from Moscow and Beijing, international reactions have been limited, leaving Iran largely isolated. The ultimate Iranian strategy is not to win the war, but to break the American will to continue it by turning the conflict into a grueling war of attrition. The 10-day delay ordered by President Trump reflects the high stakes and the immense military costs involved. As the hourglass runs out, the global economy remains on edge, and the world watches to see if diplomacy will prevail or if the United States will launch one of the most significant ground operations in modern history. The recent deployment of 10,000 additional troops indicates the direction in which the scale is tipping. While the United Kingdom's HMS Queen Elizabeth and France's Charles de Gaulle are nearing the region to bolster maritime security, the primary burden of the ground operation remains with the United States. Every passing day allows both sides to refine their positions, but the tension is reaching a breaking point that will soon result in either a controlled diplomatic resolution or an uncontrollable regional explosion. As the countdown continues, the question remains whether a ground operation can truly resolve the underlying crisis or if it will simply open a new, more dangerous chapter in the history of the Middle East. Presented by TGN, we thank you for choosing us as your source for this developing report.